RWRE8, Rest in Reality. Rants with Reason, Episode 8, Will, Desire, and Surrender, Manifestation, Magic, and the Myth of Control. We've been told something over and over. You can manifest anything. You can speak it into existence. You can bend reality to your will. Anything's possible if you believe and try hard enough, right? That's encouraging, and there's a kernel of truth in it. It's far too easy to be discouraged today. But what happens when our will collides with God's? Is desire rebellion? Is surrender weakness? And where exactly is the line between courage and control? I grew up afraid of scarcity. An only child, divorced parents, primarily lived with my mother that worked full-time and still had dinner ready every evening. We had God, love, music, and each other. What we didn't have was money, ever. Electric bills, layoffs, child support, financial insecurity. Both parents worked like dogs and modeled dedication and work ethic. Mom told me I was going to college and she couldn't pay for it, so I better get good grades. There was real struggle, and it left a mark on me to this day. Frugality, hard work, responsibility, that's just doing your part, doing your best and letting God do the rest. We certainly can't sit in a room all day and pray, then expect real change, right? We're the hands and feet of Christ, after all, and hands and feet move. So when I hear just trust God, there's tension there, because trust feels abstract and fear feels real. And that's where manifestation becomes attractive. It promises agency. It says, you are not powerless. Write it down. Focus it, symbolize it, believe it, duplicate results, don't be negative, will it into existence. Chaos magician Grant Morrison calls it hacking the subconscious. Belief as a tool, experience as proof, debugging the self, fiction as an interface. And if you've ever felt disenfranchised, that's intoxicating. And who hasn't been at this point? How often we want to give life the middle finger because it keeps dealing us a bad hand. So what is the proper response to disenfranchisement? Well, first we need to separate 3 remedies clearly. 1, magical thinking. Belief that symbolic ritual forces reality to bend, like the Sigil magic previously mentioned. Prosperity doctrine may as well be this, explained with biblical language. Have enough faith, sow a big enough seed, support this specific ministry to get these prayers answered. God becomes a genie real quick. 2, psychological focus. Symbols clarify intention and reinforce identity. This is where the Protestant work ethic lives. Again, it's not so much a limitation of faith as it is conviction. Good intentions do not always have the right level of effort. And we're imperfect. We make mistakes. God chastises who he loves. And then the third one is theological alignment. Desires offered, refined, surrendered. This would be submitting your will, wants, desires to something bigger than yourself, a higher power, the transcendent God. These remedies are not the same thing, and confusing them leads to either superstition or passivity. Right now, culture says, manifest it. The law of intentionality, the law of attraction. Hustle it until it appears. Or hustle until it appears. Secure your safety at all costs, basically. And in some Christian circles, faith can quietly turn into a formula. Speak it, seed it, declare it, claim it. We used to call it confess it and possess it, blab it and grab it. But the implication becomes, if you do it correctly, the outcome must follow. And when faith becomes a technique for extracting outcomes, it starts to resemble magic more than trust. Faith says, trust the unseen and accept the result. Magic says, manipulate the unseen to secure the result. That's not surrender, that's leverage. And leverage feels powerful, especially to someone like myself who grew up afraid. One thing my dad etched into my brain from childhood, though, is the gospel is for free. Jesus isn't for sale. Scripture literally calls it the free gospel. And Jesus said, freely you received, so freely you should give. It's actually the one time that Jesus flipped out, when they turned the temple into a market. The moment we turn faith into leverage, we've misunderstood it. What all of this breaks down to is control versus participation. Control says, I must guarantee safety. Control presents manipulation as participation. And it's very easy to self-delude here. Many a time in hindsight, I realized my issue was control, or lack thereof in reality. Participation, on the other hand, says, I labor faithfully, but I am not ultimate. Whatever it is you do it heartily as unto the Lord. Submission, patience, diligence. And then something we don't like to talk about. Rest. Courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is understanding the threat and facing it honestly. Reckless ignorance is not courage, and pretending there is no danger is not faith. Paranoia keeps us from progressing. Delusion keeps us from discerning. Real courage says, I see the fear, I name it, and I move forward in obedience. But real trust says something else. I work and I rest. And rest is not laziness. Rest is confidence that I'm not the sustaining force of the universe. And even God rested and then later commanded it. Rest is where trust must live. St. Augustine said, our hearts are restless until they rest in God. And the Suscipe, there's a prayer from another saint, Saint Ignatius of Loyola, that says, take, Lord, and receive all my liberty, my memory, my understanding, and my entire will. All that I have and possess, you have given it all to me. To you, Lord, I return it. All is yours. Dispose of it wholly according to your will. Give me your love and your grace, for this is sufficient for me. That prayer is terrifying the first time through, or at least it was to me, but especially so if perceived security is rooted in control. It is freeing, though, letting go, relinquishing control, but especially so if perceived security is rooted in trust. And to be clear, we're not talking about passivity, but participation. Participation without ownership anxiety. Alignment with God's will. This is why we pray. Pray without ceasing. Augustine referred to this as enlarging our hearts so that we can receive God's answers to our prayers. And then the billion-dollar question. And let's be honest, when someone says they want billions, it can be about never fearing electric bills again, never watching a parent carry stress, never feeling helpless, independence. That's not greed, that's trauma resolution. But here's the question I asked myself. If I never had billions, but my family was safe, my father fulfilled his calling, and the message reached who it was meant to reach, would that be enough? Because that question exposes where security really lives. If what justified the need for money is resolved, do I still want more? There's a difference between wanting fame and fruit. Fame is about being seen. Fruit is about transformation. And scale does not equal significance. Recognition is timing. Fruit is obedience. And sometimes fruit ripens long after you're gone. And that's where trust deepens, not on the mountain, but in the valley. I believe Christianity is the most coherent worldview available to humanity. Not because I was born into it, not because it's culturally dominant, but because it orders reality in a way that makes sense. It explains suffering without denying hope. It explains ambition without worshiping ego. It dignifies the individual without absolutizing the individual. And it accounts for evil without pretending progress erases it. Under every stress test, grief, success, obscurity, power, failure, it holds. And even some of its strongest critics have admitted that cultural Christianity, if you will, it produces stability. And if you honestly attempt to live within its framework, life tends to become more ordered, purposeful, meaningful. Not easy, certainly, but clear. And I believe the truth of it is translatable, relatable, and understandable. So that's the reason that I use it as a framework to view and explain things. Now, this doesn't justify its abuses. The church has been responsible for lots of tragedy. But what's more tragic is when the abuses define it. The tragedy is the misuse of it, misrepresenting Jesus. And then people deconstruct to never reconstruct. It's like running is one of the most accessible sports in the world. But if someone trains recklessly, pushes too hard, runs too fast, whoops, then gets injured and never runs again, that doesn't mean running was broken. It means it was misapplied. We've introduced Hegel in episode 7 and his dialectical mode of thinking. Thesis, antithesis, synthesis. And none of that is mutually exclusive. Push, counterpush, merge. And to be clear, that mode of thinking isn't wrong. It's just limited. And then dialectical. Dialectical spirituality treats God like opposition or resource. Either I assert my will or I suppress my will. But there's another way of thinking, one that we haven't mentioned yet. Dialogical. And you can probably guess what it means. Dialogue means conversation, not conflict, not fusion, conversation. Dialogical thinking considers many perspectives, and they aren't forced to integrate. They coexist. And then dialogical spirituality says desire is not evil, but it must be brought into conversation with God. Not crushed, not weaponized, not leveraged. And prayer isn't coercion, it's alignment. Not my will be done, but thy will be done. Or put another way, refine my will until it participates in yours. That's mature agency. That's strength without control. And symbols, going back to the earlier referenced sigil magic. If a symbol is used to force control, that's superstition. And that goes for all symbols. If a symbol is used to force control, that's superstition. If a symbol becomes a reminder of providence, on the other hand, that's reflection. The heart posture determines the meaning. In your heart of hearts, what's it really all about? The danger isn't experimenting with agency. The danger is absolutizing it. You don't defeat fear by pretending it's not there. You face it honestly. You work intensely. You build passionately. You steward your gifts. And then you release the outcome. Let go and let God. Not name it and claim it. Not deny desire. Not hustle into exhaustion. Delight, align, participate. Courage isn't controlling the future. It's trusting God enough to build and to rest. Rest signifies completion. Rest punctuates endurance. It does not mean quitting. It means trusting enough to pause. And at the end of the day, we're all human. No amount of manifesting or magic is going to change that reality. So we may as well rest a bit. Take it all in. Enjoy the scenery. I'll say it again, life is beautiful and it is worth living. Rest is real, so rest in reality. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention my dad's song, Surrender, here. I give my life to you, a yielded vessel. I could not make it all alone. I give my life to you so you can use me. You're the king, you sit on the throne. Unless you give me strength, I'll weaken. If you don't guide my steps, I'll lose my way. Jesus, put your loving arms around me. Help me, Lord, make it through the day. Help me, Jesus, make it through the day. I cannot tell you how many times I've recalled this and recentered and been comforted. His songs are available to listen to, by the way. George E. Riddle. Copyright tapes. That's literally what they are. I've said that if one were to listen to all the songs contained, you'd have a pretty good theological foundation. And they're meant to be learned and played. That's all I'm going to say about that. If you feel rested after listening to this, I will lightly suggest the 3 steps. Share, like, and subscribe. Bye for now.